today? It is the 26th of October 2016. So, well, and so much stuff going on. I don't know where to start, so I'll just start. Anyway, we've been gone for a couple of weeks because we went to the Trans-Tech 2016 convention. Woo! That was really awesome. Really, really cool. You know, I mean, I've been to a lot of conferences in the last few years, and you know, a lot of the integral things that I've been to in the United States and in Europe also. And I really felt a community with the integral people because, you know, we speak the same language and I guess we share, you know, largely the same values. And, but at the Trans-Tech thing, I found that too. There was just a lot of really good people. And I spent most of my time, I mean, they were having classes all the time, but the whole, you know, the team was there. Pam was there. Javi came in from Spain, and Louis came from the Philippines. And so there were 4 of us. But I just spent most of my time at the at our booth or our table, and it was really inspiring. And because, you know, I hear a lot. I mean, we get a lot of emails and stuff like that from people telling about how this stuff is, you know, changing their lives, or here on the teleseminar and talking about these amazing things. But I was able to sit there for, I guess, 2.5 days and just have people put on the headphones and watch people go into Samadhi, like bam, 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 over and over again. And they just take off and go, oh my gosh. You know, just, it was just really cool, you know, to be able to observe it from a third person perspective, really, you know, just sit and watch and feel the energy that was going on. And yeah, anyway, I had a great time, and it really emphasizes for me that here at iAwake we are part of a bigger movement, and this is, you know, they call it consciousness hacking, and I had a hard time wrapping my head around that because you think of hackers, it's not exactly a good thing, you know. It's like Russian hacking, WikiLeaks, blah, 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 you know, and people getting outed all their private emails. It's just not very nice. And I can understand why people would want to do it in some cases also. But yeah, you know, changing consciousness using technology, you know, what a great opportunity to heal and to expand consciousness and to increase compassion and wisdom and intelligence at a time when we so desperately need it. And it just meant a lot of pioneers, and just to really feel part of that community was really exciting. And again, from the Spiritual Tech Talks, I don't know if you guys have heard that or not, but that's this series of interviews that we did prior to this with a lot of the people that we actually got to meet in person. And my big takeaway is that collaboration is the new competitive edge. Working together to get this thing done, we can just do it better. And if we go back into the old kind of, you know, protective, you know, this is my thing, and, you know, it's just awful. The worst parts of capitalism, and you know, not the best parts of capitalism. There's good things about capitalism too. I'm not, you know, going that extreme, but like everything, it's good. Religion, is it good or bad? Well, yes. So anyway, so that was really inspiring. And also we're really going through some I'll just put this out, some growing pains, if you will, or expansions or something here at iAwake. There's so many opportunities and projects and people from different countries and language speaking groups that have used iAwake, and they want to bring it, you know, they want to bring it to their people, and just thing after thing is just opening. And we just don't have enough people to meet the demand right now. So we need to grow the company. So we're getting ready to, first time in our history is to raise money, either through investment, angel investors, all of these things that's completely new to me. And because we've all, you know, we've never done that. We've just done it from the income that created by iAwake. That's how we built the company and paid our folks. But at this point, sometimes you just need oxygen, you know, to get things rolling. And that's how I think about money as being oxygen. It's like not the main thing. I mean, maybe for some people it is, but it is essential. If you don't have it, you know, the projects die and you just don't have the energy you need to do that. So we're trying to infuse oxygen into this program. And My vision of starting iAwake originally was to make this a worldwide brand, to make it as ubiquitous as smartphones. And, and interestingly enough, it's technology like smartphones that makes this technology available to everyone. So to create that worldwide brand where people, what do you mean you're not entraining your brain? What do you mean you don't meditate? You don't have a practice? Of course, and it's like, hey, man, we're getting smarter. We're getting better. How could you not do that? It's just like if you go for generations, you imagine, and it's not hard to imagine here in the States, I have a lot of problems with it, but people go for generations without exercising, and just eating our modern diets. My God, you just get horribly unhealthy, Well, imagine that the same thing in an interior way. We go for generations where nobody said, hey, you got to work on yourself. You got to do the, transformation and healing is an inside job. You have to do that, And I think in the last, 30 years or so, people have really begun to understand, whether they do it or not, that exercise is essential, with you can find gyms and really great gyms at every major minor population center. And there's all kinds of different workout methods and schools and CrossFit and this and that and the other. I mean, you really can do that. Not all of us do it, unfortunately, but those of us who are really blessed by it. So, but it's the same thing, the recognition that if you don't have an interior practice, if you're not using these technologies to increase or to bring online some of the potential we have in these big, amazing human brains, and I think the human brain's got, it's throughout the whole body. I don't think it's just this gray matter in the skull. It seems, expands out. But if we're not using that tool to become the best version of ourselves, well, shame on us, just shame on us. Let's get it together and use what we have to be the best versions of ourselves. Because what other gift do we have to give back to the world, right? To give back, to honor our ancestors for the generations now and for the generations to come, and not just human generations, all life, right? All sentient beings. And the water and the air and the earth and all that deserves our best, wisest self. And now we have the capabilities of doing that in ways that were never available to prior generations. So, oh my gosh, so let's get on the, just no freaking excuses anymore. Let's just get on with it. So another thing I want to add to this, and then I have another thing, but anyway, let's get back to this thing first, is we've been talking about this and it just came up that we're going to start a coaching course, okay, for transformational integral practice. Right. And I'll be teaching it and leading it. And we're just kind of brainstorming about it today, because I think when you get going with something new, and you're a beginner, or even if you're advanced, that helps, is you have to have coaching and support and accountability and inspiration, right, to get in the groove. If it's like, oh my God, a lot of the people I've counseled over the years, it's like, I better meditate because I got to talk to Dupuy tomorrow. It's like the accountability. They just don't want to get on and say, no, I didn't do it. So I think that's going to be a big help. So if you're interested in that, and when I talk about transformational practice, I'm not just talking about the interior stuff, which is of course hugely important, because that's largely what we do here at iAwake, is create those tools. But in integral practice, we've identified 4 basic capacities or intelligences that are foundational and essential, no matter what your profession is, no matter what your goal in life, or you have to have these 4 things squared away. And the first is your body. Okay, you got to be healthy. You have to have a rigorous exercise program, and where you there's a book called a series of books called Younger Next Year, but they talk about at least once a day bring yourself to a 10, and where you're really breathing hard and you can't talk, and your heart's pumping and everything, and that just sends all kinds of positive neurochemicals. It changes the brain, and I mean that's just a beginning thing. So we have to work the body, and of course that includes exercise, yoga stuff, strength training, cardio, and however we come out with the individual practice of doing that. And of course, diet and what you put in your body and supplements and all that stuff. And then we have the next one is the mental line or the intellectual line. It's like, what are you putting in your brain? Are you just like, I don't know, just putting in a bunch of junk in your brain, then you feel like crap and you feel depressed and you have no vision for your life, anything. So you have to connect with wisdom. You have to connect with minds that can inspire you in the intellectual part of your life. Read the great books and listen to the great lectures. I mean, my God, you can get on YouTube and listen to anybody who has been around since teaching since the advent of films and talkies. Teaching about so many things. So we have access to all this wonderful information now. And I listen to a lot of audio books too. I absorb books like that very quickly. And the next line, we have the body, we have the intellect, and then we have the emotional life, okay? Which includes your emotions moment to moment, and also your interior, your PTSD, your traumas, and also the shadow issues, the unconscious things that we've kind of split off from awareness because they're too painful or uncomfortable, or something happened to us, or a series of things, or maybe we just grew up in a household where, our parents weren't as, healthy as they could have been or should have been. And so we develop all these stories and about ourselves and about reality, which can largely be unconscious. And so we walk around just feeling no hope and no, I can't do this. It doesn't matter. Screw it. We used to say in the recovery thing that every relapse began with a case of the F-its. You just go, nothing matters. Why don't I just get loaded? So, we all do that. We have some form of checking out whether we're addicts or not. So, and of course, in the emotional line, obviously, iAwake technologies and the practice are incredibly important. Because one of the things that we do when we go into meditation using this technology is we get to process all of our stuff. Sometimes it's like a psychic archaeological dig. It's like, oh, that's when the kid beat me up, next to the monkey bars or something when I was, 7, and you go through all this stuff, or this is what, some unkind thing that somebody said to me, the other day or whatever. We have all these impressions and all these things that add up. And when we're in meditation, we can just hold these things with the witness self, mindfulness, expanded consciousness, and allow them to come out and express themselves emotionally in our subtle and physical bodies, and then they release. And then we're not hung up with this stuff. So that's a really important thing that iAwake technologies helps. And I think it does it, much, much better than traditional meditation, because a lot of time in traditional meditation, we don't get that somatic releasing thing that happens with this technology. It's more about, you can observe it, just watch it, but it's kind of a dissociated thing. So that's very important to get clear. And if you don't do your emotional work, you can do all the spiritual work you want to, or do whatever capacity you have. But if you don't just clean out that part, you can become very unhealthy, and you start projecting your unconscious shadow stuff on everybody around you and yourself, and you just make a mess of things. Which there's a new film coming out, Andrew Cohen, How I Created a Cult, I think, and I think should be very interesting, because that's been a big problem in some of the circles I've run into since I was a teenager. These kind of cultic things that take away the dignity of the individual, and you give all your power and projections over to a small cadre or one individual, and it's, these people are not healthy enough to use it in a good way. They end up, really hurting themselves and hurting others. So anyway, so you have to do the emotional work if you're going to do a spiritual work too, because let me say a little more about that. I don't want to, piss anybody off too much or upset anybody, but I've noticed that in spiritual traditions that don't acknowledge the ego, it doesn't exist. They get their asses kicked by the ego all the time. I just don't think it's fair. Like Zen Buddhism. Oh my God, if you look at all my Zen Buddhist friends, if you look at their lineage and how they're all, the lineage keepers have behaved generation after generation, it's like, dude, just start working on your ego stuff, and then add, your big mind stuff to it. Then you have something that's really balanced and something that's really integrated and holistic and can actually work. So, and again, in the West, if you just go for ego psychology and you ignore the transcendent and ground of being and all that stuff, it gets really just bent. It's like, a dog chasing its tail, and you never really get to authentic happiness or authentic awakening, if you will. So, and then the last, right, we talked about the body, the mind, the emotional, the shadow, this sort. And the last, but definitely not least, is the spiritual practice, okay? So that is just going inside and hanging out and opening, surrendering just to the deepest part of yourself. And you can go in there armed with religious beliefs or not, or whatever it is. But as you go deeper, year after year, day after day, week after week, you really begin to tap into this stuff that all the great mystics have been talking about, okay, for these many years. And so I find it really wonderful at this point. I think I've been doing this for over 11 years now. It's a daily basis, and I don't miss often. When I do, I double up next few days. But yeah, I have enough non-dual, mystical, peak experience as a part of my practice now that I can read all the great mystics. You know, I can read Rumi and go, yeah, I know what he's talking about. You know, I can read Alan Watts, go, sure, of course. You know, because it's just part of my ongoing daily experience. Why? Because I'm this great, you know, I'm the one called for this generation to enlighten you. No, I just do it a lot. I practice, I work on it. You know, and that's the ticket. If you want to get good at something, if you really want it, if you really desire a spiritual life, a deep, true connection with a grounded being, your own deepest self, like the Hindus say that Atman is Brahman. You know, the deepest part of the individual soul is nothing other than the creator of all worlds itself. You know, ding, you know, we find that. You just got to work on it. And I've never found any other way. And there's a lot, I mean, you know, and there's stories of, you know, well, yeah, I mean, I've had that too. You have very powerful spiritual openings or experiences, but without an ongoing practice, they don't really get stabilized. You know, it's just this wonderful memory that you're kind of haunted by, and you go, God, how do I get back there? You know, I was one with everything, and I thought I was God, and I kind of was, but whatever, that sounds weird, you know, and you get all confused. And so the daily practice. So all that to say, that is what we want to work on. Those four essential things. Lines, and we like to call them lines because you can measure them vertically. You know, so if your physical line is really, really bad, you're super out of shape, it's way down here, and though you may have a really great, you know, be a great intellect and, you know, doing really good on that line, or you may have, you know, a lot of spiritual stuff, but you're still not dealing with your ego issues and your woundings and your stories and all that stuff. It just gets out of balance, and any one of those essential lines that is neglected begins to cause suffering and can affect all the other lines. And of course, it can affect your own, finding your own path and giving your essential gifts and loving as deeply as you can love and forgiving and all the things that we're required to do in these incredibly complex, amazing times and lives and bodies that we've been given. So yeah, so that's kind of what it's going to be about. And it's only been 18 minutes. Am I talking too fast again? I'll try to slow it down. I should learn from Eckhart Tolle. Hello, this is Eckhart. What? I had a story. Pam took us to see Eckhart Tolle, I guess, in Seattle when we were up there visiting family, and we got in the front row, or right up next to the front row or something like that, in this big auditorium. And right before we went in, this was about 1 PM, I ate half of this humongous Seattle burrito. Okay. So I get in there and man, that hits my bloodstream, the burrito. And I'm like, oh no. And he gets up on stage and, hello, I'm Eckhart Tolle. And I'm like, oh no. And it's like, I couldn't honor, because we went with a group of people, I couldn't honorably just leave, right, and go out and run around down maybe I could have, but I didn't feel like that. And I was like, I'm going to start snoring. And blah, blah. And so I just struggled with it. You know, you're chewing on your, you know, all your little tricks to try to stay awake. And it's just like, ugh. And then about an hour of brutal suffering. It's like trying to stay awake and meditating when you're really sleepy. It's just like, oh, it's such a drag. But anyway, I woke up, something clicked in. And all of a sudden, Eckhart clicked in, and he just started shining, lighting up the place with his presence and his teaching, and it was really a good experience. And I loved what he said. He said, I think it stuck with me and makes me think that he's a good guy. He says, when I'm not up here being a sexy spiritual rock star. No, he didn't say that. He says, when I'm not up here being Eckhart Tolle, like, transmitting this non-dual teaching that he does, he says, I'm just Eckhart the nerd. So I love that, because when we're not on doing our thing, we're just human beings like everybody else. And then when the flow and the gifts start coming through, then, stand back and appreciate. So, Pam, did you want to say anything in regards to anything?
Yeah, I thought I would share a few pictures and stuff from the conference, but let's just wait and see if people have any comments or questions before we do that. Either about your talk or about anything else going on.
Well, I'm just warming up here.
I know, really.
Got something to share from the good. Anyway, actually, do you guys hear that in my speak? Hello.
I don't, but I'm going to put mine in just in case.
So, does anyone have any questions or comments before? All right. I'm still here. If I put on my headphones, will that help?
No, it's me. Hold on. Let me get my headphone in here. It's usually me. Okay. How about now?
Yeah. Better. Yeah, it's good. So anyway, we had a meditation group at our house. We have a meditation room upstairs on Sunday morning, and Pam pulled out this book. It's A Year with Rumi, daily readings translated by Coleman Barks. That's a name in it. But anyway, so she read this thing and it really, really affected me. So maybe I'll just share a little bit of it and talk about it. And everybody knows Rumi, of course. He's a great Persian mystic from 13th century and comes from the Sufi Islamic tradition. And he is the most widely read poet in the United States. An Iranian mystical poet is our favorite poet. I think that's pretty cool. This country is pretty cool sometimes. Anyway, so it's called Silkworms. Rumi says, the hurt you embrace becomes joy. The hurt you embrace becomes joy. God, I love that. Yeah. And that's what we're called to do in practice is completely embrace the hurt, the pain, yours, the planet's, everyone's. And that's why we have to expand the container. Consciousness, awareness, big mind, big heart. Call it to your arms where it can change. A silkworm eating leaves makes a cocoon. Each of us weaves a chamber of leaves and sticks. Silkworms begin to truly exist as they disappear inside that room. So when I was reading this, and I've been contemplating it for the last few days, we take eating leaves and sticks is that is the stuff by which we form our ego selves. Okay. That is the container that we spin. And it is within the container, this limited, concentrated form of the ego, that the miracle really begins to happen. The structure with practice and work and grace and the right tools begins to turn into gel. Just the worm dissolves into green goo, I guess. I don't know if it's green, but probably. And then, of course, from that, the butterfly, or in the case of the silkworm, it's a moth. It's like one of the strangest looking flying creatures on the planet. Go to Google and check out a silkworm moth. It's a very interesting looking thing. So then you break out of that, and then you have a whole nother life, a whole nother dimensionality. But I think what this is saying is that the necessity, of the ego, again, as the container for this interior work is essential. And then you have traditions that try to ignore the cocoon, like, oh, that doesn't matter, only the butterfly. Well, how the hell do you get to it's developmental, right? And in the case of the silkworm, is that the cocoon itself, this ego structure, becomes the raw materials for a higher consciousness to weave and create silk, and all these beautiful forms and stuff. And I was thinking about that, and it's like, it's our ego structures, our individual human things that sometimes feel so painful and so limiting that become part of something that is a bigger pattern that is creating the beautiful robes of the universe and a higher purpose that we cannot understand, which I'm sure the silkworm doesn't get. It's like, this is going to be a happening sweater or whatever. They just do this thing. And inside, I think inside this limiting room that we build around ourselves, which is our personal identity, far from being bad, it is the vehicle through which we transform through the pain, through the challenges, through all the stuff that we go through as human beings in order to, become this next flying thing. Silkworms begin to truly exist as they disappear inside that room, all right? When you're consciously going inside and you're doing that inner work and you're confronting, the ancestral shadow, the cultural shadow, your personal hurts, your beliefs, your hopes, your loves, your faith, all of this stuff begins to just like dissolve, and from these really kind of very tight structures into the building blocks or the fuel for the next level of our huge leap in evolution. It says, without legs we fly. When I stop speaking, this poem will close and open its silent wings. So it's that interiority and then the opening. So the hurt you embrace becomes joy, and your little cocoon of yourself that sometimes you may just find so painful and awful, or you may find it great. But a lot of our, individuals find that cocoon itself is so painful they end up killing themselves before they get to the butterfly stage or the moth stage. So anyway, honor that. And I think the way that we do that metamorphosis is by really embracing the interior practice that we've been thinking of. And when we were in Palo Alto, is where we went to the conference, it was it 3 days or so? And it was like, we went to a pre-conference thing. So I think it was 3 or 4 days. And being a thorough introvert, right? Being around all these people, while it's very, very, it's very cool, it's also a bit much. So I think I meditated like 2.5 hours or something like that. And I got into a very, very deep place after it took me about an hour just to process and all that stuff. And I got into this deep, deep Samadhi state. And what I mean by Samadhi, just a place where the individual structure and ego and thoughts become very diminished. If not, they go away, and it expanded into this other level that is just feels connected with everything. It feels warm and beautiful and peaceful and loving, and just essentially a deeper the ground of being, if you will. And really, really important stuff, because as Maslow said, Abraham Maslow, if we don't experience that as human beings once or twice, he said a few times in our lives, well, I'd say that we actually have a spiritual, emotional, physiological need to go into these states quite often. But anyway, one of the things that came to me, which is kind of, the mission, of iAwake and the work that I've been doing, is that to be a master, in other words, to really excel as a musician or as a human being, let's just talk about being a human being, the master must master the practice. You've got to get practice. It's the only way to get there, legitimately to get there. I mean, you can get there temporarily with, different state-inducing things, but it's a daily practice that actually gets you there. And that iAwake, our goal is to supply the tools, okay, these highly evolved tools for our time right now. And maybe someday we'll look back and it wasn't that primitive, but right now they're highly evolved to allow us to master interior practice and to Yeah, to become masters using the right tools with the right dedication and the right work. It's even with these tools, it's not easy. You still have to show up, and often little ego just doesn't want to look there. After all these years of meditating, man, I'll go, God damn it. Do I have to do this again? Can I just like miss a day and there's stuff I don't want to look at or something? There's that resistance to practice. But I know after enough years that you just do it. And that's one of the things that this course that we're thinking about getting started is to get you to the point where you just practice no matter what. You don't need any coaching. You don't need inspiration. You don't need a sangha. You don't need a community to get you there. And once you get to that level, well, that's mastery by definition, or at least George Leonard's definition. He wrote a really short classic book called Mastery, which will be one of the books that we go over and read in the course. So yeah, I think that's about what I wanted to say. And let's see, what did I do today? I did Nadia Lynn, who was our brilliant creator who did Workout Ecstasy, sent me a new track. I did that for 17 minutes. And then I did Meditative Ocean for an hour, which I haven't used in quite a while. It's a really, really good meditative tool. So that's what I did, and I started my day, and now we're here. So I think that's quite enough from you, John. Yes, thank you. And any comments or questions about anything we said or something totally not related? I mean, somewhat related, but not necessarily about what we're saying.
Jade would like to say a few things if I can.
Is there anything special you have to know about how to share? You got to push a button or?
Yeah. There is a way to click something that's, lets us know you want to raise your hand and speak. But Jade, yeah, your mic is open now. Jade, if you want to go ahead and speak.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, see you too.
I think it was set to my one of my cameras behind my computer. So apologies if I seem a little bit disconnected. I had like 4 days for the past few days where I couldn't sleep, and then finally got some Ambien in me from the hospital the other day. So I had a huge, profound awakening just the other day. So to give just a slight amount of context, I've spent the last about 9 months just diving deep into everything, every realm of science and technology, every occult group, things like that, looking for the unifying theory across all boundaries. And in that, I've come across a few things that kind of are big takeaways for me. One, I'm sure most people are already aware of the biomagnetic field around the Earth, or sometimes known as the Akashic records, kind of like a multidimensional data storage system, so that what we are doing in our physical vehicles is constantly by our own choice, and our belief sets are shaping the reality around us from moment to moment. At least that's been my perspective. I think there are as many ways to look at this as there are ways to look at it.
Yeah, that we're kind of uploading constantly our individual learning into some kind of collective unconscious that at times can become conscious.
And in the midst of that, we're also receiving downloads, and we get those through, arts like meditation and entrainment and everything like that. When we're learning biofeedback, we're improving our ability to listen to those more still channels, the kind of ones that we didn't quite resonate with before, because we're restructuring our own internal geometry in a sense of our life. Our belief systems are restructuring, so we're giving something for that sound to then echo off of and resonate with us and vibrate different parts of our body. So I've seen an acceleration, and I don't know if anybody else has seen something along the lines of what I'm going to describe, but I believe it to be possible in anyone's experience, and if so, it kind of changes the game for all of us. There are times, and with how much I've been researching on this, I should be aware of any major advancements in the fields of quantum physics and some other areas. But I've gotten to the point where I've been at the threshold, and it really felt like there was nothing left to explore unless I wanted to sit down and do the daily research in that field, right? And since that's not exactly what my soul yearns for experience-wise, I like to jump as far as I can off the building and see as far as I can, and then report back to the mothership, and say, hey, here's a new pawn that we didn't find before, right? But in the midst of that, how I do it, how I continue to have unknown, rather than jumping to a different timeline in a perceivable way for me, I just continue to exist chronologically on this timeline, but the things that I was exploring that were kind of in the future at the leading edge are now happening like 30 years ago. So then they have time to catch up to me now with new developments that I can then tap into and research. So I don't know if anybody else has seen anything like that, but I've noticed that in chemistry today, I came up with a conclusion that I don't know how much chemists have taken into account the fact that all the elements are spinning at any given moment in their equations. Nothing is solid. So if you're linking something in your body to its key, it's not just that it's sliding into this lock, it's that they're doing this spin and then suddenly they sync up into that locking place, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it's if you take the element of water, which is basically just a triangle, and spin it around in enough directions and spin the middle piece out and everything, you start to get the flower of life, among other sacred geometry symbols. So that's all I'll share for the moment. I am enjoying your presentation.
Well, thank you, Jay. That's wow, terrific.
FYI, I've been looking for a group to get involved with tribe-wise, because right now I work in IT as just a network operations engineer.
Yeah, we've been working with a group of really amazing, dear, sweet German folks, and they have a website they started in Germany called Human Trust. It's a really good name when you think about it. And they've done very, very well. And they contacted us because they were using iAwake technologies and they wanted to get out iAwake technologies to the German-speaking world. And they started telling us about what they're doing. I said, my God, this is kind of website, kind of community I always wanted to have. And they're doing that. So we're actually working towards getting that going starting in the beginning of next year for an English-speaking version of that. And anyway, and one of the things that really impressed me was they said we lead with community and content second. And I was like, oh, that's so good, because so many, you're the IT business and, you have the whole virtual world, available through this, this noosphere of the internet that we created, but without real contact, it's bloody lonely, and we are made to be communal tribal creatures. And it's just something essential. So that's something kind of echoing what you're saying, looking for a group and Jade. And yeah, it's important. And sometimes, life is just really kind of bleak, without the human connection and the animal connection and the nature connection. But we need to connect in real ways. So anyway, thanks for sharing, buddy. You're amazing. Appreciate you. Awesome. Anybody else have anything they want to add to anything that's been going on here? Pam, did you have something you wanted to share? You're muted.
Thanks. Yeah, let me just remind people that, hold on, I'm just getting my notes here, that you can raise your hand here on Zoom if you're on the web, and then if you're on the phone, there's a few people on the phone I see. If you hit the *6, that will unmute you. And then we can talk to you. So *6 for people who are on the phone. Meanwhile, just in case we're waiting to see if anybody has anything to share, I thought I would share the screen and share a few pictures from our TransTech conference. Some of you all were asking if we would do that. So here we go.
Yeah, that was our little Samadhi table there. And yeah, just people coming by and using iAwake for 2 or 3 days. And it was wonderful. It was, and when people, when you finish the meditation, people are just in a deep place. So what follows is the communication is at a depth too, So anyway, it was a really, really cool thing. So anything else? Here we go. That's our little team. That's Hobby on the far left. He's flown in from Spain. That's Louis from the Philippines. That's Pam from Pamland, and that's Big Lug on the far right is yours truly. And I have on my Hal baseball cap, which we went into San Francisco. We ran around, we walked around North Beach, and we went to City Lights bookstore. And I'd lived in San Francisco before, and I was a singer-songwriter, and I moved in circles of poets and stuff like that, where we took poetry really importantly. And anyway, going back to City Lights just reminded me, it's very kind of nostalgic and moving about that time. And anyway, San Francisco is a beautiful, enchanting place. Okay. Anything else, Pam?
Oh, yeah. Here's one.
Yeah. Let's see.
You want to say what you're doing here?
Yeah, this is a technology that they're saying works really well with Alzheimer's. Okay. And it's not a brain monitoring thing. It's actual a frequency that's going into the brain. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to do it for very long, but I did it because I don't know, something came up. But it was definitely I felt very light and very clear, And then Hobby, I did it for a longer period, and he also said that was his experience also. So anyway, and my mother is suffering from severe Alzheimer's, short-term memory loss. So anyway, I'm interested in pursuing that. Anything else? This is like is somebody raising their hand? Stefan.
Hold on, Stefan. Let me get you on.
Yeah, unmute, Stefan.
There you go.
Go ahead, Stefan.
Moment. Yeah?
Yeah.
You hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
I have something to share first. I had some really, nearly incredible deep experiences with some tracks like profound releasing, for example. And I feel very intense. I feel things when somebody talking to me, or when I see things like disabled person, I feel it in my legs. It's not only bad, but it takes a lot of energy, and it's sometimes it distresses me very much. And this profound releasing, I heard it the last week. It was incredible because I have some places in my body, some areas where I feel it's like energy which is manifested. It's manifested energy, and I feel it's like pressure, like it's kind of heavy. It's like tense or anything, and I was able to get into it, and just like this is a guided meditation. Some folks don't know maybe. And it changed. Yes, it's you get into this subatomic level, and it's changing. And I don't know what's happening, but incredible. And after this track, which is about 40 minutes, I think, I was completely done, tired, exhausted. I lay on my bed, and my body going like this, some different areas. To be honest, I have to say, there's another program I'm taking part of. It's from Christy Marie Shelton. I don't know if you. And this is also goes very in very deep. I don't know. This is where really it's unbelievable.
Wow.
And it's sometimes just when I lay in my bed and my body is relaxing and it goes on, and I have some reminding like situations that have been 2 decades, 30 years ago. I don't know how much. And as I said, I have situations where I don't just hear, I also feel.
Mm-hmm.
And situation coming up, and I'm in this situation, and I feel the things I felt at this time, and my body is reacting, and I think I get lost of it. Finally, it's releasing, and it's. And now I got goosebumps.
No, that's awesome, Jade. Yeah.
Yeah.
I went through a very, very similar experience when I first started using this technology, and it wasn't quite as dramatic as yours. I mean, but the feelings would become so intense in my body, and all the stuff would just like stuff that had been keeping me ill for a long, long time just started coming out, and you know, and it's when you're going through the process, you know, it's like a chaos theory, which explains how things, or at least observes the process as pretty predictable when things go into chaos and then they emerge at a higher level of organization. You can't really predict what that next level is going to be, but it's going to be more beautiful. It's going to be more functional. It's going to be more interesting. But when you're in that, like we're reading Rumi's poem, you know, when you're in that gel phase and you're dissolving and all this stuff is coming out and you're getting ready for this next leap forward, it can be a little bit scary. And it can also be unpredictable because you don't know what this higher version of yourself could be. I mean, you could have a wish list. Well, I'd like to be, you know, blah, 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 but that's not the way the universe works. It's very unpredictable, but predictably it moves into higher levels of organization, which is like phenomenal. And they don't know why that happens, but we can observe it happening all the time, you know, and that's why.
Yes, and that's, pardon?
Oh, I was going to say that's why the original molecules in the universe and the atoms, there was hydrogen, and now it's Stefan, you know, 13.8 billion years later. You know, it's like, that's a pretty good story, you know.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Oh.
And, yes, I have no wish list at all. I just trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
So I go into the process and okay. And sometimes it's like there's a voice coming and says, let's go. Just let go. And yeah, it's incredible. And I'm crying many times. It's yeah. And I have one special question. I have a really good friend of mine. He's very sick of cancer, and I had some weeks where I was looking after him very intensely. I did a lot of things with him, and at the moment it seems he's getting better, but probably he will leave about, I don't know when, but he probably will not survive. And I had a guy, he's a psychologist, and he said, you have caught a trauma. I don't know, but it felt so because at some point I didn't have no more energy left. And it's now about 5 or 4 weeks. I have been in holidays in the meantime. I haven't been with my friend. I couldn't go there because it's too much. It's simply too much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my question. How can do you have some special track to release this trauma? To get to a point where I can where I come to a point of resilience, of power and of strength and of clearance, and I can be with him without feeling that pain, that sorrow that I cannot help to.
Yeah, in other words, being able to be open enough so that, I mean, obviously on some level that you're gonna emphatically be with the person where they're at, but that there's such a larger container that it doesn't get stuck in your personal little thing and it takes you down. I mean, all of us who, worked in the healing professions, had to learn that one, or we didn't learn that and we changed professions. It's like you work with addicts or death and dying and stuff. If you don't have a practice that opens you up in such a way, I love solar infusion, profound releasing, deep recovery, digital euphoria. Those are all some of my favorite tracks for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it becomes a practice being in that sort of situation, so you really have to make sure your practice is strong so you can be present the way you need to be.
Yeah. And is there a difference between this profound meditation 3.0 and 2.0? Because I read yesterday in the description of 2.0 that there should be a special technique for releasing trauma. Right? Are they similar? Are they? It's just the same.
Yeah, I mean, are PMP 2.0 and 3.0 similar? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, they are similar. One is I just rediscovered PMP 2.0 in the last 6 months. I hadn't used it for a long time because we had 3.0, which is fantastic. And they are similar in that Eric, when he put those together, he was using a mixture of binaural entrainment along with this biofield, subtle energy stuff. And so, both of those products work really well together. I mean, if you're going to do a long meditation, you could start off with 2.0, 2.3, the third track, and then move into, PMP 3.0. I often mix these things and very successfully. But what happens is that these technologies put you in a very open, healing state of consciousness, where the question is just to relax and and then it's like, is anything that needs to be released, please bring it up, and if specifically what issue you're dealing with, you can just say, when I was hurt in this relationship, or when I was a kid, or whatever it was, and just be there present and open, and oftentimes it'll begin, the experience will come back, and you'll start to feel the sensations in your body. One of the things I've been doing is going on, this is really cool, I've been going on YouTube, and there's a lot of good EMDR videos, so you can see this bilateral stuff going on, and I'm listening to PMP 2 or 3.0 while I'm doing it. So I'm doing the entrainment, and then I'm also doing this bilateral, and it moves all over the screen like that. And yeah, PMP and a lot of our tracks do that naturally, but I think when you do it with the visual thing also, that really increases the capacity to release these traumas. So it's the iAwake plus the visual thing. I think that's a really good coming together of two different technologies. So go to YouTube and hit EMDR, and you'll find a bunch of different ones, and find one that feels good to you, because there's a bunch of them. Some of them have nature or waves, or you're in the universe, or some is just a ball of light going back and forth. And I think that would really be a good way to work with that. And then there's a whole thing that I haven't personally experienced very much, but the tapping thing. So if you were doing the meditation, you might try to do that, watch the balls and tap along with them. And there's the process when you're dealing with trauma, what happens in PTSD is that these memories get stuck in the amygdala, the very primitive kind of survival part of the brain. And so when it comes up, it's like, oh my God, it's like you re-experience it. You're in the the truck and the IED goes off in the Middle East and, your buddy gets killed and you get blown up and all this stuff. And it's just like you're right back there again. But what needs to happen is through this bilateral movement through both hemisphere, it seems that these memories are taken out of the amygdala and then they're stuck into a place where memories are supposed to be stuck. And so they're not like this 3D virtual reality experiencing it all again. It's like looking like some of the authors say like a black and white picture of when you're a kid. It doesn't have the emotional control anymore because the emotional stuff is released and it's processed. So that's part of the way that we're learning now to deal with trauma. So I think by using our stuff and also trying the tapping with it or doing the tapping along with the watching the balls on YouTube or any other active place you can get them. That's just what I've been experimenting with. And I'll often, more recently, because I've been dealing with some pain in my own stuff, that I've been starting out my meditation. And usually the tracks last for about 15 minutes with this, and then I'll just go into my normal meditation for another hour or so. So you might try that, Stefan.
Hey, John, Janet's on here, and she has been chatting about using EMDR, and there's a book, Lynn Shapiro's book about EMDR too. Stefan, there's even, I'm sure there's licensed therapists in your area who, if you want to do that rather than the YouTube.
Yeah.
We don't
directly
have
with the person.
the only therapist in our area I live with, right? So, yeah. Also, there's a book. It's called Walking Away the Blues that I've been reading, and I haven't gotten through it yet. I'm reading a bunch of books, but he's talking about how you can actually use just the practice of walking, as a bilateral thing. You bring up your issues and stuff like that. And it's a really, what is the guy named Tom Hartman, I think, is the author. Really, really kind of brilliant Renaissance man, and he really gives a history of this bilateral EMDR work and talks about early Freudian hypnosis and how successful that was being, and then how that kind of got, anyway, kind of a dark history, and then it went into talking therapy, and it went away from something that was very well accepted and being used all over the world, so it kind of got just done away with, and now, of course, it's coming back in new iterations, new technologies, and new forms of therapy. So, yeah, I definitely... And if you could find a therapist to work with you, that's brilliant too. And try it out, like I said, what's available on the internet, and see if that works with you using iAwake.
Hey, it's getting pretty close to
Thank you, Stefan.
Yeah.
Thank you too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's about time to close this off. Okay, so we'll keep you posted with the coaching thing, the coaching community, and really have a lot of, I'm excited about that, because, one of the things when I'm teaching, and I practice all the time anyway, but when I'm teaching it, I really it ratchets up my practice just a little bit more, because, it's very important to, be realizing I'm not the guy that's achieved everything, but I am a dedicated practitioner, and they call me around here the chief practitioner, which is a real honorable title, because it's an ongoing process and it never ends. So, well, anyway.
Thanks, everybody, so much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, all.
Ciao, ciao. Thank you.